Impact of Control Towers on Supply Chain and Logistics, will be moderated by Mr. Apurva Mankad, founder and CEO WebXpress. Our esteemed speakers for this session are Mr. Vinay Chauhan, Chief General Manager, Logistics, Bridgestone India; Ashok Vasan, President and Chief Revenue Officer, Pando Corporation; Sanket, Founder and Managing Director, Elixia Tech Solutions; and Mr. Ravikumar Nair, Vice President, Logistics, Petrochemical College for Reliance Industries. I would hand it over to Apurva to start the conversation, and I hope the delegates you enjoy it. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for starting the session, and welcome to everybody on this very exciting session, I will say, likely to be on the impact of control towers on supply chains and logistics. As we all know, today in India, we are in the midst of extremely challenging time for overall industry and especially for supply chain and logistics. Not only in terms of the overall impact of COVID, but we also have a lot of global issues affecting us today in terms of the availability of ships, the containers, etc. And many of the industries are affected, seems to be only increasing with every year and every passing month. In this panel, as we have a very power-packed set of people with vast experience in different industries, we will try to understand from them how they see these entire challenges and how they see supply chain visibility and especially control tower and how their organizations are trying to deploy some of these technologies to control the overall movement of material across nations and of course within the nation as well. If you look at some of the recent developments apart from the immediate problem that we face because of COVID, India has been on a fast lane if you really look at from logistics point of view, especially on the regulation side. In a short time of just about 4 to 5 years, we have seen some fundamental changes which are affecting the supply chains totally. GST was one of the first which started. It's a game changer, as we all know. Lots have been talked about it. But apart from that, we are seeing a very fast adoption of digital technologies and in many ways forced by the government in many areas. For example, the adoption of FASTag has been going up because of the very strong arm tactics used sometimes by the government of the day, so that people adopt that way of making payments of toll, something which may seem to be very basic to a lot of people maybe outside of India. Similarly, there are some unique things such as e-way bill which have come in, and we probably might be the one of the absolute unique countries where every movement above rupees 50,000 requires certain kind of a gate pass. And well, everybody's doing it. We get 50 million plus movements every month today and recorded in absolute real time. And then of course there are other initiatives such as e-invoicing, GPS mandate, etc. So in short, we have a fairly changing environment, challenges in front of us. So let's go to the panel and see what they feel about it and how they are addressing the same. So I'll start with Ravikumar Nair, who is the Vice President Logistics for Petrochem Solids at Reliance Industries, extremely experienced professional with Reliance itself for almost 8+ years. Before that, he has worked with companies such as Shell, Castrol, and Asian Paints. And as we can see from his experience trajectory, we can say that in chemicals and paints also, as we know, is a type of chemical, and he's an expert, in this particular area. So Ravi, let me start with you by asking you a question that transportation and storage of very high value items that you do, and many a times hazardous material in your experience that you move, especially when your supply chain is global. It's a very, very complex task. So we would like to know from you, from your operational experience, how do you actually keep a watch on such a massive operation? What kind of tools you use today to monitor all the components of logistics? So it would be great if we understand from your experience. Ravi, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Apurva. And thanks to Vineet and the entire IMI team for this opportunity to speak in this webinar. Yes, as you rightly said, it's a massive operation we do. And considering the hazardous cargo nature, it's extremely important that we keep an eye on it and ensure that it doesn't really result in any sort of mishap or any untoward incident for any of us. So I think the mantra here is very simple. We look at more of exception management because it is practically not possible to look at every consignment. But how do we do the exception management? That's very important. That's
Yes.
where the tools and the technology comes into effect. For example, I have to speak specifically about hazardous cargo, then the usage of real-time visibility using the track and trace mechanisms, a combination of maybe a vehicle tracking system or a SIM-based tracking or whatever is available. And then ensuring that we do a violation monitoring at a real-time basis and then take corrective actions on a real time so that the mishaps are avoided. So what we have done, we do that we have categorized the cargo into different nature, and depending upon the risk, we have a approach towards handling the particular cargo. So for hazardous cargo, we do a online continuous monitoring of all hazardous cargo. We have vehicle tracking systems installed on all the tankers and the trucks that ply on the Indian roads. We have a 24/7 operating control room which looks for exceptions, and there is a very robust distribution safety management which we have built around. And in exceptions, there's an immediate escalation that is taken up with the vendor or with the spoke who's nominated by the vendor, and real-time corrective actions are taken. Similarly, God forbid if something happens, there's a need to do an emergency response. So we have worked on a very structured emergency response plan. So it's a 3-level emergency response we sort of have put in place, right from a toll-free access to online support for MSDS and related information laboratory in emergency support services. And at a level 3, even an on-site, off-site support is required. That also is made available. So that's the way we do that. So it's all about doing a very targeted exception management so that nothing untoward happens. Yes, tools have been a very important component overall. So what we do that we look at a very holistic way of managing the entire logistic supply chain per se, but within logistics also, right from sourcing till settlement. So even for sourcing, we work with the procurement tool. So it's an online bidding process for the vendors. The vendor can submit the bids. So there is no manual intervention required anywhere. Similarly, once it comes to the allocations are completely agreed, then even the execution part is through a tool. So we used SAP PPBS and other modules where even the vendor allocations are automatically given to the vendor. So vendor doesn't, nobody has to physically come in contact with us. So he has a web access to a portal. He gets all his shipments on his portal, so he can immediately know what is available for him to lift, and then there's a specified timeline within which he has to confirm. And when it comes to the plant, no physical verification is done, no authority letters, everything is through the web itself. And once it leaves on the plant, then the control rooms comes in. And similarly, when the trip ends, there's an electronic POD process which is already installed. So even the settlement is faster. In fact, we have implemented reverse billing also for the vendor. So the vendor doesn't have to even keep a track of what is to bill to us. So we actually upfront tell him, these are the due payments to you. So please now start just making an invoice and give it. It's all about sanitizing the process and having an end-to-end outlook towards automating every aspect of logistics. That's the whole nutshell about how we're managing it. I hope I'm going to justice to some justice to the question.
No, absolutely, Ravi, and it's fantastic to know. I mean, you make it sound very easy that it's all like settled and working very well. But I'm sure the scale and the complexity are pretty a lot hiding behind that smile. I'm sure there are a lot of exceptions that you have to manage every day. I just had one additional point to ask of you. You, of course, mentioned that you have getting the vendors to come via portal and you kind of procure them online, etc. Do you face challenges of search? For example, you suddenly need 10% more vendors, and at that point of time, those vehicles may or may not have the relevant technology of track and trace. So let's say specialized containers, maybe you are able to kind of enforce certain standards. So how do you take care of any immediate deviation which may happen for a surge or a drop? Like last year we saw a drop, and then we saw a surge. So must be a difficult situation.
That's again where technology helps us, Apurva. Because as I told you, what we have done is that we have made a combination of two systems. There are multiple systems. We have got a couple of more systems available. So we don't not only track the GPS, we also have an option to track a SIM of the driver. So even if there's a surge movement, if there's a temporary induction of the truck happening, you can always track the SIM. And then what we have a unified platform. So any GPS device I can accept on my unified platform, and then I can track it on the portal itself. So even for
Okay.
a surge movement, I am able to do a track and trace.
But
That's
that's a
the beauty
must,
of the
without which you
system.
will not, let any cargo move. That's
Yes,
great
yes,
to
yes,
know.
yes.
And
Yes,
we of
but
course
yes, we know
expect.
there are limitations of the same base tracking. But then yes,
Yes.
it serves a purpose. We are working on other exceptions like maybe the RFID tag itself, which now fast tags, which government has implemented. So at least we will know the
Okay.
visibility on the highways. Though of course the last mile may not be possible.
May not be
So these
possible.
are also areas work in progress. And I think you rightly spoke about the e-way bill compliance. That's again one more nightmare for the transporters and the challenge for us also. Because as we know that an expired e-way bill, how difficult it is to handle, and then practically there's no solution way out unless you do some wire working around and then do some jugaad to fix it. And
So
it
I'm
sort of
sure.
takes away a lot of time. So even there also these things work a lot. So we actually have an operations control center. We look at expiry of e-way bills on a daily basis and we alert the vendors.
Okay.
So that in addition to the track and trace visibility, what we have, we also do alert management to the vendors. So because anyway, vendors will be talking to their drivers on a daily basis. So they're able to track, and then also we have been offloaded the activity of it because we work as a through a GTA. So even the first e-way bill is done by us. But
Correct.
what we have done the integrated system in such a way that once the truck is on the road, the e-way bill extension can be done to the vendor itself.
Okay, that's great. So I think great to know about these things. Of course, with Reliance, we expect gold standards, and that sets a benchmark for the industry, not only in your sector but the others. So just moving the sector, and we have Vinay Chauhan, who is the CGM Chief General Manager at Bridgestone India, and Vinay is a lifetime tire expert. He works in the area of strategic planning, plant operations, cost control, quality management, you name it, and Vinay has the experience. He's been with Bridgestone for almost 21 years, and he brings a lifetime of experience of how the entire ecosystem of tires are managed. So, Vinay, asking you that question, and I'll be very specific in a particular area. Within the tires, so we've always heard about IoT being used in tires, Internet of Things being used, and tire being one of the key industry for the same. So, do you see a widespread adoption today from your experience, not only with your company but otherwise as a larger industry? And what will be typically be your idea about the percentage? That out of total tires which are being made or sold in India, how many must be going with sensor, and what has been the trend? And of course, comparing with your global experience, you represent a global company. So, would like to know, Vinay, from you. And I'm sure that also will be one of the components in for you to kind of check where every tire is in this country. So, Vinay, will love to hear from you.
Yeah, thank you, Apurva. And a very pertinent and burning question on the in the boardroom. So first of all, to answer that question, let me set the context. That with the Indian perspective, the tire industry is around 65-70,000 crore company, and the chunk of the revenue, almost 54%, comes from the truck and bus operation, followed by, of course, car tires, two-wheeler, three-wheelers, tractors and trailers, and then off-the-road tires. So a significant operation cost is from the truck and bus operations, and within that space also, we all realize that tire is the second highest operating cost for an operator after the fuel. And here also tire plays a double role because it also contributes to the mileage of the vehicle. So tire becomes a very significant component of the operations. Unfortunately, being an unorganized sector, the focus on the operation and maintenance on the tires is very limited. And that is where the tire companies have pitched in to offer fleet management solutions. And those are offered in three phases. At the initial level as a tire check service, at the medium level as a maintenance where we depute our skill operator to manage the tires. And third is the pay per kilometer, where tire is not a product but a solution. We manage the entire tire, and the charges are based on the kilometers the vehicle has run. So there's the space we operate right now. But as you rightly mentioned, that the biggest constraint is when the vehicle moves on the road. There is very physical, very limited control on the vehicle. And normally the drivers are remunerated on two bases. Either they are paid lump sum, and when they are paid lump sum, they are responsible for the diesel, they are responsible for the toll, they are responsible for all the expenses which are incurred on the road. So here the tendency of the driver is to overinflate the tires because that gives him better mileage, but that comes at the cost of the life of the tire, the life of the vehicle, and the life of the roads. So in short, the entire ecosystem gets damaged because of this practice. On the other hand, where the driver is being paid on a fixed basis, there the care of the tire is not taken adequate, and thereby we incur higher efficiency, higher fuel cost, and again the life of the tire is high. So as rightly you mentioned, there is a need for a solution where if we can have an IoT device in the tire, which can sense that temperature and pressure and which is connected to the real world, then we can very easily monitor. If I can flap my thought wings, then with this device, we can also measure the vibration and thereby prepare the contour of the road and define the quality of the road, and which can go as an input for the RTO department, the road contractors. Say, for example, if there is a pothole on the road, that information can immediately flow to the concerned people, and it can be repaired in time. And also it will significantly reduce the chances of accidents. So that is a space where a lot of work is going on. Unfortunately, in the Indian context, if you see, we are significantly on tube type tires. While the world is operating on tubeless tires, we are on tube type tires. So there is a big challenge as far as the sensor is concerned, the hardware component is concerned. And that's what everybody is scrambling to work out a solution for that. And once that solution is there, so I'm quite confident that this will be a future technology and which will be deployed in a massive scale.
So with that, do you kind of pre-build these sensors into the tires today, or you give a choice to the customer that do you want a tire with sensor, and do you I will kind of as I understand, you typically put the RFID tag inside the liner of the tire, and kind of it is fused in the tire, if I'm not wrong, so that nobody can really take it off. And so that is something which you do it as a service today, or you do it as a as a OEM, as a manufacturing level itself today. And are the trucking companies, the OEM truck manufacturers, are they asking you, saying that we would like this to be built on day one? Because a lot of them have come up with their own telematics solutions and sensing a lot of things from a vehicle. And one of the key things, as we all said, is tire. So is it happening today on ground?
Yeah. So the technology so far is very expensive.
Okay.
So if you talk to me about the off-the-road tires, there is a very expensive tires. The maintenance cost is significantly high over there. So there, the technology of inputting the chip in the process of manufacturing is a very well proven practice.
Okay.
But putting the chip on the truck tire or on the car tire is pretty expensive. So all the solutions which are being currently worked out are from the outside. You put a sensor on the rim, you put a sensor on the valve, but still it's very expensive, and the life is not there. So it's a lot of work going on in this space.
Okay, so I will say automatically that by virtue of expensive in a developed country, because obviously the dollar value being higher and they being richer, it's much more easier for them to adopt these technologies as compared to, let's say, developing nations. Will you say that?
That's absolutely correct.
Okay. And that's interesting to note, and I think it's a very good insight that you gave us, regarding the tire inflation and the relationship to what you are paying the driver and how you are paying the driver. That's a very interesting thing for a lot of fleet owners. I'm sure they know it; they do it every day. But then, actually using some of this technology, if we are able to get real-time data, to shape the roads is something which will be really, very interesting thing to do, even if it is done on a limited scale. That will be great. So let me move to the technologist in our midst, on our panel. So I'll go to Ashok first. Ashok Vasan. He's the President and Chief Revenue Officer at Pando Corp. Pando Corp has made a name for itself for using artificial intelligence and machine learning in the area of supply chain management. And Ashok himself is a highly accomplished executive with more than 25 years of track record. And he has worked with CA Technologies before Pando Corp. He was a CEO of M9 Tech. He's worked with Dell for 4 years, and he has been with i2 Technologies as a vice president before that. So all in all, he brings in a very wide exposure to countries, I'll say, and also technologies, I'm sure, as a part of his working at so many, different organizations, and now with, Pando Corp. So we heard, Ashok, from both Vinay and Ravi, both are from, their own respective industry leaders. Uh, Now, you are very well aware that Bridgestone and Reliance are not India. They are probably at the top tier of our corporate structure and some of the best companies out there. But it's a large country, right? And the sheer size and the variety of supply chains that is possible in a nation like India, and of course across the nations. How do you make a technology which will kind of help you to do everything in one place, because there will always be challenges of different type of supply. For example, we just heard tires and their sensors, then that's a problem in itself, and the chemicals will have a different set of issues. So would like to know from you how you manage this variability of expectation from various customers, since you work with so many of them. Is it like one size fits all solution today, or custom built solution are still in vogue in the world of cloud and SaaS? Really, it will be great to hear your experience on that show.
Yeah, I mean, that's a massive question, Apurva, and thanks for asking it. But I'll take a little bit of sort of perspective. The industry nuances, right, as pointed out, just clearly between the petrochemical side that Ravi represents and Vinay representing the tire business is vastly different, as you pointed out. I think the way each industry approaches it is based on their respective supply chains. Um, some supply chains are heavily reliant on more of the inbound and import, especially if there is a vast amount of raw materials coming through an imported supply chain. If you take an FMCG company, they will have, the primary, the secondary, and then the last mile sort of delivery system. If you take a business to business, let's say a raw material, I'll just take the tire industry for example. If it is, carbon black, it is, business to business, and therefore it's primarily a single leg of movement. The way to sort of, picture this is to say what are the behavioral characteristics of each leg of movement, right? And what are the requirements that are needed is the way to formulate this problem, rather than thinking about it as saying a one size fits all, we have taken that approach of saying, let's look at it. How do we solve the inbound problem? How do we solve the import problem? So if it is coming from China so if there is a factory to port, port to port, which is Nhava Sheva, and then from Nhava Sheva, the domestic inbound, that whole leg has to be mapped out. And each node of that supply chain has to be sort of feeding into the so-called broader platform of logistics system, right? The challenge that we face is freight inherently is a networked activity. Regardless of which company you are, if you're moving goods from point A to point B, you're involving parties who are outside of your enterprise. It could be a broker, it could be a transporter, it could be a driver, as Ravi mentioned. You might have to resort to SIM-based sort of technologies even, because the penetration of Android or Apple app-based phones is still not 100% in a India-based context, right? So to come back to your question is, how do you address the broader India ecosystem, given that you've got, the so-called trailblazers like the Reliances and the Bridgestones and other leading companies, and then the rest who are, let's say, the fast followers of the the adopters that are figuring out what needs to happen. I think it comes down to saying, let me look at this movement where my bottlenecks are in my supply chain, and systematically going after fixing each one of those bottlenecks. If it is in the primary leg, let's solve that. For that, which means you treat the whole transportation and logistics process as from a procure to pay process. Okay, identify, how can you dynamically adjust your procurement processes? A lot of companies go into a 1 year or a 2 year contracting process, which binds them. Can you dynamically change? Are you able to dynamically procure, transportation capacity? Then you get into the planning and optimization strategy to say, okay, now if I'm going to actually move the goods, you will have, end of month, end of quarter, and, those kind of spikes. And you need to be able to dynamically adjust how you're going to be procuring the right kind of capacity. The right truck type and the right truck mix is very essential in order for you to optimize. Then when you get into, the actual movement, visibility of it and the tracking of it becomes critical. Otherwise, you're literally going to be, you can put a track and trace solution up front, but you'll only know that you're going late. But the upstream parts of the process that are needed in order to make sure that you've taken the right planning decisions, you've made the right movement decisions, and you've taken the right transporter decisions has to be done dynamically because business conditions change. Demand today might be in the south, tomorrow it may shift to the north and vice versa, right? Route changes and so forth. So, and then of course the payment process. But underpinning all of this, what I'm saying is from a control tower, the way we look at it is, the control tower, in our view, basically comprises of 4 critical features. Right? The first part is visibility. What is happening now and what is going to happen in the future. So you're able to somewhat predict what is going to happen. It's not just, will my shipment arrive on time or is my truck off course, right? To be able to take a little bit of a longer term view of what's going, even if it's a week or a monthly sort of view, what is going to happen becomes very critical for the performance of your supply chain. Now, once you are able to, in some way, predict what kind of issues am I facing, that visibility is not just the here and the now, it is also looking through the front, the windshield and looking ahead. The second part is to now, what is my intelligent response and decision making going to be? Which is where, some of our algorithms gets into, problem solving and to figure out what should we do? So get a little prescriptive in the solutioning. Right. So when I talk about dynamic, it means that early part of the week, you might be on a lower sort of shipment volume. End of the week, you might be higher shipment volume. How do you make those adjustments dynamically is critical rather than it's not a one size fits all. Right. So that's where learning and methods become very important in making those intelligent decisions. Right. So we talked about visibility. The next part is intelligence. The third part is as you continuously learn, you're now in a position to start automating and to run the supply chain autonomously. So when Ravikumar talks about the control tower where you're tracking the movement of the thing, beyond a certain point, the escalations can also come down because the system is autonomously, going into self-heal mode, self-correction mode. Now, all this can run very, very effectively as long as you're underpinned by intense amount of data, which is where telemetry becomes very, very important. And to take all kinds of, order and performance measurement, timestamps, delivery details, etc., performance information, and so on and so forth. So I think the broad sort of response to your question is you've got to break it down into the leg of movement for that specific industry. You've got to be dynamically oriented to make sure you're adjusting. And the control tower setup is based on visibility, intelligence, and automation, so that you're able to preempt some of the problems that might take place. At least that's the way we are approaching, and a lot of the customers that we are working with, the industry players are working with, whether it's FMCG or in the tire industry or whether it is in the chemicals business and so forth, is working with.
Good, Ashok. Thanks a lot. You gave a very detailed overview of how control tower components are and what they should be. Let me now go to Sanket, who is also one of the practitioners of control tower and actually deploying them for many of the companies, many of the customers of his. So Sanket is the founder and managing director of Elixia Tech. He's an end-to-end logistics technology expert, and he has helped to build an entire suite of logistics and supply chain automation tools. And works with more than 800 plus different companies. So Sanket, let me ask question again, extending both what Ashok said and also earlier what Vinay was talking regarding IoT and sensors. What has been your ground level experience? Do people actually use control towers by taking data from so many different places? Are they able to make sense of it? See, one thing is to put up a technology together. what Ashok mentioned, and putting the intelligent algorithms together, which will do a lot of work. But do you really see the companies derive ROI, derive benefit, derive some returns, and actually say, okay, this is where I was, and now I've been able to move here because of deployment of the technologies that are in the question. So Sanket, from your ground experience of working with almost 800 plus companies that you've done so, can you give us an idea of where you see this working? And I keep on going back to this ground question because India is a very grounded country. End of the day, many of the solutions which may work as we earlier saw for a Reliance or a Bridgestone may not be adoptable by some of the smaller or mid-sized companies, and that's why I keep on going back to the theme, because I'm sure a lot of listeners must be also wondering that these are very good things to do, but do they actually work for me, and will they work for me tomorrow if any of the experts are going to come and tell me and help me tomorrow? So Sanket, what's your view on that?
Sure. Um, Firstly, thanks, Apurva. Thanks, IMEI, to give this opportunity to speak. Thanks, Apurva, for conducting this session. Let me be very specific. Uh, by the way, I'm the least experienced. I'm the most inexperienced of the experts who are here.
That is these days a strength, Sanket, I must tell you.
So very passionate about supply chain digitalization. It's been like 10 years I've been in this business by far. Um, I was in US, did my master's there, flew back and started this company as is. In US, people drive on right. In India, people drive on whatever is left. That is primarily why I flew back to India and started Elixia. Um, so just to be very specific, firstly, we have talked a lot about IoT. Thanks to Vinay bringing this up. Ashok rightly pointed out, the four stages of supply chain control tower as a whole. Would just want to share my ground level experience and what I believe supply chain control tower is. Firstly, I'm very afraid of the Indian market at this stage because people really believe that visibility is it. I mean, is the first stage of supply chain control tower ideally is visibility. So when you get visibility, you're all good. Ideally, supply chain control tower just starts there, right? So the first stage primarily is the visibility. The second stage ideally comes with regards to data-driven decision making, ideally. So be it optimization, be it alerts, things which help us make decisions, delayed deliveries. If it's like a cold chain, then temperature compliance alerts, temperature conflict alerts, and beat stoppages and stuff, right? So all those things come as a second stage. And I'm afraid most of the enterprise companies here in India stop there. They do not really think beyond this. And when they get this, they're like, I have automated. I now have supply chain control and I'm all good. Ideally, they have still not reduced their costs. Actual ROI comes after this when they eliminate a lot of their capital expense, when they have predictive analytics come into picture with a lot of algorithms and ML which comes into picture. That is when you come to know what's going to happen 6 months down the line. Especially not considering uncertainties which we are going through currently, especially in COVID times and stuff. But otherwise, there needs to be a clear picture of what's going to happen 3 months down the line or 6 months down the line. That is ideally the third step of supply chain control tower. And then comes the network orchestration, which Ashok rightly pointed out, where things need to be autonomous, where the decision making needs to be done by the control tower itself. And supply chain head should ideally sit back, relax, and see, catch all exceptions, and take necessary actions. So this ideally should be the approach towards supply chain control. There's a lot of scope in India with regards to bringing this. If we consider Europe and American markets, it's all saturated. They all have reached the fourth stage. I've been working with a lot of customers, and they are all through with all these things. But here in India, we just talk about visibility. We do not really take a step ahead and do anything beyond this. While having said that, there's tremendous scope of adoption of supply chain control tower. Not now, maybe in like couple of years from now, we'll be all sorted, wherein we'll have a lot of enterprise customers reach a stage wherein they'll be like, there'll be just a few people controlling and managing the entire show. So that's primarily what I feel control tower is all about. And yeah, so that's my bit of information which I intend to share. But yeah, thanks a lot, Ashok and Vinay. You pointed out a lot of things which I believe everyone should know.
But Sanket, I mean, great to know about this, and you are bringing a perspective which is, of course, very fresh. And having seen the US market and studied out there and seen the world out there, I mean, coming to the Indian roads and how you actually navigate them with everything that we have on the roads other than vehicles. I again go back to Vinay and understand that these tools are being talked about, and Vinay, Sanket and Ashok both said that these are available today. These tools have been used by the developed countries in many which ways. Of course, newer things are being done. At Bridgestone, can you share, are you using these on ground? Are you getting these tools typically from your, parents or something which you do more indigenously? And what about adoption? Do you see challenges in adoption? See, end of the day, one thing is to have a tool. Let's say you have an autonomous algorithm, but the algorithm ultimately is going to suggest you to do something. Do you see challenges in that? Not only I'll say this question for you, only limited to your organization, but in your general experience with your vendors as well, because you will be working with a large ecosystem of customers and vendors. Do you really see adoption happening?
Yeah, Apurva, that's a very good question. Because adoption is a big challenge. And to give a perspective, let me explain regarding the tire itself. So when we sell car tire, we say we need salesperson. When we say truck tires, we said we need sales engineer because he has to be a salesperson, also a technical person. And when we sell the off-the-road tires, we say we need a technical engineer. We don't need a salesperson. So it's a completely commoditized product and highly evolved product. Now, when I see the solution companies approaching us, they approach us like a salesperson. While what our expectation is, the approach should be like a technical engineer. The idea is not should to sell a product, but sell a solution. So that I see is a big challenge. And at this point of time, what I see is globally people are working on these directions. And so there is no enforcement from our parent company to follow a particular line of direction. The most important thing is the integration should be possible. Eventually, we will like all of the operations to be integrated to seamless one operation. And that is it's not a big challenge at this point of time because network integration has come so far ahead. So that does not seem to be a challenge. So by and large, it has become your autonomous decision to adopt a technology and go ahead with the technology.
Okay.
Second major thing which I observe is the limited penetration of these technologies. So what I would say is that when technology companies are thinking about coming up with a solution, the thought process should be massification, not globalization, but massification in India. So when that happens, the adoption will increase, the revenue will increase, the use of technology will increase, and the penetration will increase. That's my take.
Thanks, Vinay. And let me take a question extending the same to Ravi as well. It will be no-brainer that Reliance will be able to acquire best possible technology out there, integrate all of them, and put them on ground. But when it comes to partners, it's always a challenge. They will say, you want me to put up GPS devices, you want me to put sensors, you want me to manage all these technical stuff. So what is the better approach that you say, okay, I will invest on behalf of the partners? Because end of the day, a partner is a small fry, and the benefit actually goes always to the larger network, which in your case will be the manufacturing company. Whereas for a partner in itself, a sensor additional or a GPS here and there, in itself doesn't really make so much of sense in ROI per se. So how do you address that? How do you make partners invest into these technologies, which benefit them obviously, but will benefit you as well? So is there any kind of sharing models that you all have come up with, or it is simply saying that no, it's in my interest, I'm going to put all the money on the table, and which is again practically not always possible because partners will come and go and they will change over time. So how do you address that nitty-gritty part of it, which ultimately makes your entire network and supply chain visibility work?
Yeah, thanks, Apurva. That's a very tricky question because there is no right answer. And it's always a very dilemma for the company, buy versus lease or buy versus outsource. But having said that, what we in Reliance do is that we sort of do a assessment on our own. And I take the point from what Sanket made. Yes, we need to work on all the aspects of the control tower, not just the visibility aspect. Some things which have got a very significant impact on the security of my systems, I would perhaps take an investment decision.
Okay.
But a decision like a tracking device, why should I? Why should I invest? I just put it as a contractual requirement, and he has to, and I will pay for that. As simple as that. But even in that, it's a journey. Like we evolved on that front also. I remember like 7-8 years back when we started with this tracking device implementation. Those days it was very expensive. In fact, I remember the days when my Shell and Castrol days, the device used to cost 20,000 plus, and today it's in 2 to 3,000 rupees. The device is available. So
Correct.
that's because the massification thing which Vinay spoke about. So that is what will drive all these things. So in those days, the way the model we implemented was we negotiated the deal with the OEM, with the telematics OEM, and then worked with the lease option for the vendors, so that it's a win-win for all. So you get work from us, you pay the lease, and you pay the vendor. So that way, that was an arrangement done. So again, there is no one size which fits all the solutions. So you need to tailor made it as per the needs. So it's a very evolving phase. But in a space like maybe my procurement tool, I will never invest. I will try to definitely do on my own. So settlement side, I will do on my own. So that's a very clear decision that I will sort of build my own ecosystem and my own systems to manage that.
You're like government of India. Whenever it comes to any revenue or expenditure kind of IT systems, you're going to keep it on your own. You could always invest in it first, right? So we have some questions, and I am absolutely aware we are absolutely running into the time limit here. So let me straight away take this question to Ashok out here. So there is a question that do we get resistance from employees slash I will all add from my side partners and customers in adoption of AI in logistics management. So we have been talking about AI, ML, doing some wonderful things, and companies like yours have been at the forefront of it. But do you face resistance where people will feel, okay, so there is a machine going to decide on my behalf, my job is not going to be there tomorrow, and then kind of try to make life difficult for the AI? So have you seen such situations, and how do you tackle them? How do you kind of convince people that don't worry about it when they sometimes actually have to worry about it?
Yeah. No, I think that's a legitimate concern, right? And see, the first thing is that just to set the sort of taking a little bit of a historical perspective, AI is not something that's new, right? At least from a manufacturing context, AI has been, was first embraced quite heavily in the early 90s. So in terms of how assembly lines and how the paint and test processes were being run. So that part slowly sort of became mainstream, as any large manufacturing factory is now sort of equipped with the hardware, which is built in with artificial intelligence in it. Now, when it comes to running logistics and supply chain processes using AI algorithms, the question is not as much on resistance as much as it is about being comfortable with what the system or the algorithm is actually recommending. And in order for that to be sort of fully embraced and understood, people have to be comfortable with the results and the algorithm itself, and to understand what the logic is that is being utilized. What are we trying to achieve? What are the constraints that we are trying to overcome? And what is the objective function that needs to be addressed? Is it minimization of cost? Is it maximization of service levels, delivery lead times? Is it streamlining the communication between vendor and partner? Payment cycle. So if you're doing reverse billing, then can the algorithm automatically learn what is the charge, what is the likely variance, where the compliance are, which are fraudulent, which cannot be fraudulent, learning the scripts, languages, all of those things eventually end up making the mundane tasks go away, and there is value addition in both sides. The vendor soon realizes that he is only going to get paid sooner.
Okay.
And from the shipper side, you're also realizing that you're not unnecessarily focusing on mundane tasks. Rather, you're now saying, how do I increase the level of performance of my network of providers, right? What else can we do to get it done? So, should I focus on better, telemetry? Should I focus on better, tires performance, as it may be? So today, where people are in that we are finding is we're doing a lot of the tasks in a mundane fashion, which they would like to be able to do a lot more value addition work with regards to insights and analysis. But unfortunately, that is not. All that will be sort of rendered unnecessary so that you can do more value added work and by explaining what these algorithms are capable of doing.
Thanks a lot, Ashok. And I think we've come to the end of our session. I think this is a topic where if you really gather in a room, you can spend a day talking and still have lots to discuss further. And very, very interesting area. I'm sure 45 minutes is not a time in which everything can be learned about the control tower and its impact. But we hope the perspective as given by all of us today in the panel has helped and enriched people who attended the same. So thanks a lot, everybody, and over to you, Vinay.
Yeah, thank you, Apurva and the speakers for a very insightful session on the control towers and its impact in the logistics industry. To summarize, I would like to thank our partners, our registration partner, MapMy India, a CX partner, Zendesk, a session partner, ShipLight, a silver partner, Fretron, a knowledge partner, Supply Chain Labs, an industry partner, PhD Chambers, Chamber of Commerce and Industry. We thank all the speakers and moderator for an exciting session, and delegates, please look forward for the upcoming sessions at Logi-Tech Conference 2021. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Have a good day.
Thank you.